Hi guys, 41 here, back with an LCS ranking by position for the summer of 2022, ramping up the video production as we're coming in to the summer split starting next week. Let's start with top lane. So, in first place we have Impact. Impact coming off of a very good MSI performance. He looked incredible. In fact, he was probably the best player on the team next to Inspired, and I thought Jojo Pune also played quite well too. And I expect that run of form to continue. This is a guy that is touted as constantly talking about the game, really doesn't take a break. He just kind of keeps going. So in terms of burnout, I'm not worried about Impact heading into the summer split, and I think he will remain good. I just realized I have an order lineup wrong here. Second place is Someday. This one is a bit interchangeable between Whippo and Someday. If we were still in the meta that we had in playoffs, I would for sure give this to Someday 100% of the time. But we are no longer in a Tryndamere meta in top lane, and because of it, I don't know if Someday will be able to keep up his run of form. Someday was really good in the spring split because of his ability to carry from the top side, which not many top laners were able to do this year. So, with that meta shifting to more of a tank style focus, will it change how 100 Thieves plays towards top side? And if that's the case, does the lack of resources then make Someday a worse player? Who knows? So, I still put him in second. I know some people might put him in first, but I'm going to keep him in second. Third place, Whippo, kind of a disappointing end, but a decent beginning. He looked very good in the first 5 weeks of spring. Once we got to playoffs and later on in the spring regular season, he kind of struggled. You could tell maybe it was a bit of burnout, maybe NA solo queue was getting to him. Who knows, but he really did not look all that good. Fourth, we have Licorice. This is another one that I think a lot of people will kind of maybe roll their eyes at, but I think Licorice deserves fourth place here. I think he's good enough. I think he's been a rock for that Golden Guardians team, which, you know, hasn't looked great all the time, but when they have looked good, it's because Licorice is playing well. And I think that kind of just shows how good of a player he is. And then fifth, there's Fudge. Fudge transitioning back to top lane from mid. I know a lot of people had him as like the first or second best top laner last year. I've never really been sold on Fudge personally, but I still had him third coming into the year if he were to remain a top laner. But after the transition, he's got to come back and probably learn the meta all over again. And so I'm going to put him in fifth starting, but he could end as high as third or second, I'm sure. Top 5 junglers. So number 1, Santorin. A lot of people will put Inspired here. I disagree. The reason I disagree is because I think Santorin played a incredible playoffs. All the way through, he was consistent, played really well. I'd say the only screw-up he had was the Baron Smite in the semifinals. But honestly, I don't even know if you can blame him for that either, because Riot ended up removing the mechanic that made him miss that Smite. So I think Santorin was really good. I think he was better than Inspired. I still think he's better than Inspired. But, you know, that just kind of shows the quality of jungler we have here. Number 2 is Inspired. Inspired had a great MSI. He looked fantastic. He was great in playoffs. This is a player that's been consistent through EG, I'd say, throughout the spring split. And he'll continue to be that. This team is only going to continue to scale with Danny and JoJo just continuing to get better with their chemistry, continuing to get better. You know, this team is dangerous heading into spring. Inspired could end as high as 1 if there's, you know, more ceiling, if the ceiling's a lot higher than I think it is, but I think he'll remain at 2. 3 is Closer. Closer kind of had a disappointing playoffs, honestly. When we got to, you know, Houston, when we got to the stage, he just didn't seem the same. There wasn't that aggressive mentality. He didn't execute as well. And he kind of overextended a lot. He overextended a lot, which really put his team in bad circumstances. So For me, closer gets third place here. He's still a great jungler. He'll still do well in the regular season, but I just don't think he's good enough to really hit that, top 2 threshold yet. Number 4, Jose Dioto. I think Jose Dioto is slept on quite a lot. I don't think people would put him in top 5. They'd probably put him 7th or 6th. But I think he deserves 4th. I think Jose is a really good player that knows how to play to his lanes, plays team fights really, really well, just great intuition, and he's just getting better as the splits go on. Like, this is a guy that's coming into his 4th split of LCS, and he just continues to get better. When you have someone like Aframu coaching that team too, the potential is limitless when it comes to this guy, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're considering him a top 3 jungler by the end of the split if FlyQuest does well. And then 5th, Blabber. Blabber's been very disappointing spring split. He didn't really look all that good. There was a lot of turmoil in the team, and that could explain it. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like he's at that level that we're used to him being at. And maybe with the addition of Jensen, that mid-jungle synergy will change it, and maybe he'll look a lot better. But for now, I think he's probably 5th place. Mid laners. Number 1 is Jensen. One split off. I still think he's first in the LCS. Jensen by far is the best out of all of these mid laners. Mid lane is not a great role in the LCS at the moment. Really, you have Jensen, Bjerg, and JoJo, and then it's just a massive gap, and then everyone else. But Jensen tops this list, even with a split off. I think he comes in and he's still the best straight away. 2nd place, Bjergsen. Disappointing, I have to say. He was getting better as the split went on, and maybe he'll get even better as we come into summer split. But this is a player that people touted, as, it's the second coming, bro. He's back. He's ready to go. And he really just didn't live up to expectations, didn't look all that good. But he was still best. He was still the best mid laner in the LCS at the end of spring split. But with the addition of Jensen, he moves down to 2nd place. JoJo Pune in 3rd. Heading into playoffs, I don't think most people would put him in top 5. But he did really well in playoffs, and he looked great in MSI. This is a player that is continuing to get better. The trajectory is clear on his development, which is really good news for Evil Geniuses. And I think that he deserves 3rd place right now. And he could contend for 2nd, I think, by the end of the summer split with Bjergsen if he plays well enough. In 4th, I don't think many people would put him here, but I'm going to put PoE. He played on a really bad team last split, but his performances were consistent. He was still really good, and when Immortals was winning, it was because PoE was carrying them on his back. So I still think he's a great player. He deserves to be in the top 5, especially in this league with how bad the mid laners are. So I think he's definitely 4th. 5th, Abadage. Abadage was very disappointing in spring. Like, he went from a top 3 mid laner at the start of the year to 5th now, and that's in a league with horrible mid laners. So I'm very disappointed, honestly, in what he's brought to the league so far this year. Maybe it will get better. He didn't look much better in playoffs, honestly. Like, just the poor performance kind of continued, and I'm not too excited for him coming into this split. Top 5 ADCs. Number 1, Berserker. A lot of people are going to put Danny here, and I disagree. Danny is really, really good. Really fucking good. But he's not Berserker level talented. If Cloud9 wasn't as, in turmoil as it was, Berserker would have been able to show more. He had a terrible support. With Sven now, I think he will look a lot better, right? You go from having the worst support in the league, in my opinion, to probably having, at least a top half of bottom 5 to mid-table top 5 support. You're going to look a lot better, and I think that will show this split. I think he's going to be really, really good. Number 2, Danny. It's Danny. The dude's completely cracked. He only gets better every split. I wouldn't be surprised if this dude cements himself as the best ADC in the LCS for the foreseeable future. At the end of the split, I really wouldn't be surprised. It might take EG winning another championship, getting back to back, but if he does that, this dude he's ready. He's practically the next Doublelift at that point. Number 3, Hans Sama, touted as the best ADC in the league heading into the year. Really just not that great compared to, I think, his competition. He played well, but I think people were expecting, the rogue playoffs Hans Sama from last year, and we really didn't get that. We kind of got a more conservative version of that, and I don't know if that's because of the team dynamic or maybe he just fell off a little bit. Who knows? But still a top 5 ADC, still really, really fucking good. So he does belong in 3rd place. Number 4, FBI. FBI is getting let down by his mediocre support and his bad mid laner. But FBI is still mechanically a top 5 ADC. He still deserves to be up there. He's really, really good. If 100 Thieves can kind of figure out their dynamic, their problems behind the scenes, I think FBI can shine again. I still think he's up there, though I think a lot of people have dropped their stock on him. He just doesn't look as good. And then number 5, Johnson. This one's a tough one. I know a lot of people might put Stixay here, but I'm going to put Johnson here. I think Johnson is kind of slept on. His performances in spring weren't great compared to what I think a lot of people wanted to see. But I don't think the meta really suited him. I think the meta does suit him now. I think the durability patch and the update will make his style of play a lot more possible, and it will make it look a lot better. And because of that, I'm going to put him in 5th. I think he has a really good split coming up. I think FlyQuest in general are going to have a good split, which I'll get into in my video tomorrow. But I'm going to put him in 5th place here. I think that's where he ends up. Top 5 supports. Number 1, Core JJ. That's not even a question. I mean, best support in the league by far. Team Liquid struggled this last spring split. But even when they were struggling, Core JJ was still consistent, still really good, still the best support in the league, and that hasn't changed, and I don't see that changing for a while. Number 2, Afromu. For being on a team that I believe they got 5th place, Afro is definitely the 2nd best support in the league. He played incredible. His performances on pretty much all of his champions were great. He was never the reason his team lost the game, ever, throughout the split. In fact, he was mainly the reason his team won the game outside of, it was mainly him and Jose Diodo that were kind of running this FlyQuest team and making sure it didn't look as mediocre as they did last year. So for me, Afromu, 2nd, he's looked really good. Most analysts actually, I don't know if they'd agree with 2nd, maybe 3rd or 4th, but he's definitely up there heading into summer split. 3rd place, Vulcan. Normally people would probably put Vulcan at 2nd, and normally I would as well, but he just hasn't, he didn't look very good at MSI. He was overextending a lot. He got picked quite a bit, even against bad teams. It just wasn't the Vulcan I think we're used to seeing. Even in LCS, like, those mistakes are going to be taken advantage of. And so it was just weird seeing him play like that. Maybe he's got his groove back heading in. Maybe he feels a bit burnt out. But either way, I'm putting him 3rd. I think he's still up there, obviously. He has to be. He's reigning LCS champion. But I think he's probably 3rd right now. 4, Ole. Golden Guardians, most people would probably meme this. But Ole's really, really good. He's slept on. Great support. That bot lane was kind of doomed. Lost really isn't that great of an ADC. But the times that they won, it was because Ole was finding great engages, or Ole was playing team fights really well. This is a guy who's been around for a while, really long time. He's kind of grinded his way back up into the LCS, which we're very happy about. because his performances are always great to watch on the weekends. So I'm gonna put Ole fourth here. I think he's really good. And then fifth, Ignar, coming back after a split off. I think Ignar ends up at fifth in the league at the moment. The creative plays, the intuition, what is there not to like? This guy will always pull out something different, always keep you on your toes. He may be a bit rusty when he comes into summer split initially, but I think when all is said and done, he's fifth place in the league right now. Potential to go higher depending on what Immortals look like at the end of the year. All right, and that's the end of the top fives. I'll get into the bottom fives now. I know not everyone really cares about the bottom five in the league, but I'm going to go through them. All right, so top lane, I'd say Dokla, Kumo, Huni, Revenge, and Gumsu. You know how high I am on Gumsu. Oh, I absolutely love him. Jungle, Spica, River, Kenvi, Pridestalker, Contracts. Mid laner, mid, Tukui, Maple, Blaze Olive, Palafox, and Blue. ADC, Stixay is 6th, Luger, Lost, Tactical, and Neo. And then at support, Huhi, Biofrost, Sven, Shenyi, and Poom. And two things I should mention. When it comes to support, Sven could be anywhere. He could be top 5. He could be the third best support. He could be the first. Who knows? He could be better than Core JJ. We don't know. Right? And that's what happens when you transition. A lot of analysts have come out and said that he's good enough to play support at a high level in LCS, better than ADC, and that's what LS said. He was very, confident in that. And then in mid lane, Blaze Olive is 8th right now, but Leader is their intended starting mid laner once Ole's green card comes through. And when Leader is starting, he is definitely top 5 in mid lane. He might be 4th, I'd say, in the league once Leader starts straight off the bat. So, a Blaze Olive, take that one with a grain of salt, All right. That is the video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys later.